Hey, I'm Garrett, owner of Omnitype, designer of the Bauer Lite. When we came out with the Bauer 2 a couple years ago, we only made 500 units, and we did it through a pre-order process, and 5,000 people wanted to get the board. That was a big wake-up call that 10 times more people want to buy this board than we can produce, and we just didn't think we could keep up with demand. That's what gave us the idea to try to make a version of it more mass producible, which is what led us to injection molding. The original target audience was enthusiasts, because that's kind of where the idea came from, was the enthusiast $500 Bauer, just trying to get all those people that couldn't get that aboard. And then once it ended up being a much lower cost unit because of the production method, that opened it up to almost anyone that wants to get a keyboard. We broadened our target market and started thinking more about everybody that could use this board and creating it to where anyone on the planet that buys this board can build it and enjoy it. Getting new people into the keyboard space is what pushes the keyboard space to become better. If there's not new people with new requirements or interests or needs in their product, everybody would get complacent and keep doing what they were doing. With new customers, it pushes you to have to make bigger, better things, which is what Bauer Lite is. Bauer Lite would have never existed if it weren't for a mass number of new customers coming in. It presents a challenge, which then pushes you to higher heights, I guess. As cliche as that is. We've done group buys basically from the beginning of our existence. And as most people know, with COVID came mass delays that were out of everybody's hands. That's just kind of what was happening all over the world. So we knew that with that came a distrust in that model. So we didn't want to keep pushing that model if we didn't have to. So we thought that if we could present a low cost, high quality enthusiast keyboard in stock, that's like the last check mark. That's like everything that everybody would want. So we really pushed to be able to just check every box. So in stock, order it, get it the next week or two. How can you beat that? We're probably at about over 3.5 years now. I did take a couple pieces of feedback from Bauer 2 customers when we shipped that and applied it to Bauer Lite. Just small things like the isolation strips having kind of alignment trays so it's easier to line them up instead of it just being flat. Quality of life improvements that I got from Bauer 2, I just obviously implemented into Bauer Lite since it was the next thing coming. The injection mold engineer, who I call the injection mold master, he happened to have worked at an injection molding factory in the US previously. So when he knew that that's what we were looking for, he connected us with them, and it was just a perfect match. So I guess it was a little bit of luck involved in finding them, a lot of luck actually. Trying to achieve the exact same design externally as the Bauer 2, but injection molding. When I started working with our engineer, I handed him the CNC files and I said, hey, can we make this for plastic? Basically like, hey, can you do this real quick? And little did I know that is not how it works. It had to be designed from scratch, where the entire inside basically had to work differently. I wanted the mounting to work the same, but in order to achieve that, the inside actually had to be different because of the limitations of injection molding. If you look on the inside of a Bauer 2, there's a lot of huge, thick areas of metal that we had to basically hollow out, which then you had to find where to put all of these mounting hardware pieces inside. That was a huge challenge. Getting it to look exactly the same on the outside. Like, it is very, very close to being identical. There's very, very small differences if you were to actually start measuring things with calipers. But that was definitely the biggest challenge, was achieving something that had already been created in a different way. I guess to put it simply, CNC, you're starting with material and removing it. Injection molding, you're starting with nothing and filling it in. So you're literally creating in the exact opposite way. The biggest thing that comes to mind that I caught, there were a handful, the breakout board, the daughter board with the USB-C port on it. The biggest luck on the planet, the mold wasn't made perfectly correctly for the daughter board to lay flat. I was just happened to be testing something else. I visited the manufacturer, the injection mold factory, just one last time before I left. I was like, I'm just going to assemble the entire thing, make sure everything fits right, everything's flat, everything snaps together right, And for some reason I decided to put the daughter board in there, even though in my mind we didn't need to. And when I put it in there, I realized it didn't sit flat. And that was pretty last minute, but we ended up finding it where we could fix it before. Which is another benefit to in stock that I didn't mention before, that with in stock you can fix all your problems before, or most of them, instead of letting the customer be the guinea pig. The big thing that we changed, the donut bumpers, we kind of figured that out along the way. So because I didn't know the limitations of injection molding going in, I thought we were just going to use isolation pour-on strips on the top piece as well as the bottom. I soon found out that we couldn't just have a nice big flat thick part like the Bauer 2 to just put that strip on. We had to hollow them out. So I basically had to come up with a way to put pressure on the top of the plate without foam strips. So that's where the donut bumper little circle bumpers came in. That was just designed like on the fly because of the limitations of us not being able to do what we wanted to do. Originally, our first edition units were going to be fully transparent units. That came out of people really loving our pre-production samples, which were made before the texture was added to the mold. We never planned on doing a smooth, transparent version, but when people saw our photos in our development document showing off, everybody was asking about them. I was always going to add texture to the mold. We kind of came up with an idea that before we put the texture on the mold, we can make a small number. It was going to be a first edition that you could never make again, because once we had the texture, it's on there. We had ordered those parts to be made. We thought they were made, and then the molds arrived at the factory. We thought those parts were going to be with them. And then when we started asking about them, nobody could find them. Long story short, they were never actually made, unfortunately. And the texture had already been added to the mold, so that was another delay in the process. We've advertised since day one that we were going to do a first edition, so we couldn't just drop it. So that's when we pivoted to the all white with the custom mold. We do have a very, very small number of the samples of the fully transparent units that we will be running in one of our small batch runs, so very, very small amount. But there will be a very limited number of people that will be able to get one of those fully transparent units. So when we visited the factory, whenever they're in between two colors, they basically just keep running the parts until the second color comes through completely clean, which means the units in the middle is a mixture of the two colors. So when we saw those, I was like, what are those? And they said, we just throw those away. And I told them, like, no, I want to keep those. Send me all of those. So that kind of birthed the idea of doing small batch Bauer Lite runs, where however many units that come in of each kind of swirl of the two colors together as small batch units, similar to how vinyls will do that. They do it in the same way, where they have two colors mixed together and it's just a completely random number. We don't even know what they're going to be when we get them. We open the box, it's a mystery. We see the colors, we come up with the best color combinations that we can come up with, and there might be 4 units, there might be 12 units, but we'll sell those as just fun swirl mixture surprise units, really, for us. So that should be fun. We'll basically do those every production run when we get those swirl units in. I wanted to come up with color choices that would go with the majority of keycap sets that I thought were out there that were really popular. So obviously we wanted our 2 neutrals, Grim and Ghost. Atomic seemed to just be a no-brainer when you do this translucent style. You want that old school 90s purple. And then Seafoam, which is like a teal, is a very popular color in so many keycap sets, so we did that one. And then obviously we had to do red because that's our brand color. So that was kind of where we chose those 5 colors. There's definitely a few that we want to add that we would probably call the core colors that you need, but those are the 5 that we landed on. Maybe not be so unbelievably detail oriented. There is definitely a line where you should probably just move on to the next thing and not search for perfection in every single tiny piece. Negative is probably just to triple and quadruple check every single thing that's happening. Keep on top of everything, I guess, because things change, and there were a few times during the process that something that we had information on, when the time came for that to happen, that information had changed, and then we just had to quickly adapt and try to find a solution to it. We definitely plan on basically doing any color that we want to do, that we think people want. We're definitely going to do opaque versions in the future. We have planned themed versions that go with keycap sets, 808, dual shot, all that kind of stuff, with custom molds on the bottom. So we designed our mold where we can change out the bottom to have a design actually molded into the bottom, not just printed. So that's going to be really fun to play around with special editions. We have no limits. We want to play with everything. Different shininesses, glow in the dark, bright, dark, opaque. Sky's the limit, basically. As far as material, it's probably going to have to stay with polycarbonate because that's what our molds were made for. I think that's the part that really takes a long time, that it's kind of hard for people to understand because no one ever sees it. But it's probably the most important part. It doesn't matter how great your product is if it shows up incorrect, or you only get one rubber foot in your box, or the color's in the wrong sleeve. So you basically have to plan every single thing out and make sure every single person involved has all the information organized to know what they need to do. And then when they send it to the next person, they know what they need to do. And then figuring out this product is made here but needs to be shipped here. We need to keep this many products here. Every product has a different MOQ number, so your products aren't all running out at the same time. So you got to keep up with, we still have stock of this, but we ran out of this. That's something that never ends. That just continues forever as you go. So it's really just us trying to dial in on that and find the sweet spot, and kind of get into a groove with that as we go. That was a huge part of the delay, is just setting all that up enough where we were confident where nothing would go wrong. The mental part is just knowing that it's taken so long. Like, that was always in the back of my mind. It was 1 year, then 2 years, and 3 years. But also knowing on the other side, if I put it out right now, all these problems are going to happen, and that's not a good look. So I had to basically balance those things, of that stress of the timeline it's taken, but also just trying to make the best thing I could possibly make. Basically, not by myself. I definitely had a lot of help, but as far as the person on our team that wasn't a contractor doing the work, we didn't have people making things simultaneously. It wasn't like the packaging was being made while the injection molder was happening, while the screws. It was sequential. I had to do one thing, then I would do the next thing. So that's probably the best answer to why it took so long, honestly. It was just nothing could be done simultaneously. It was all sequentially done, one after the other. I would say simply that it gives you an enthusiast experience at a very low cost. That was our goal with the product, was to give you the closest experience to the Bauer 2 at a fraction of the cost. We think it punches way above its price point, and that was our goal. Packaging was probably my favorite thing to do. That's probably my favorite thing to do in my job, is to design packaging. I love just thinking through the experience, every tiny part of the outside, what the order of taking things out, what they look like when the box first opens. That light just died, but we're gonna keep going. I just want it to look as polished as possible. A big thing that I wanted that we haven't done in the past, and I feel like a lot of people in the space don't do, just because we do things in this space at such low quantities, is every colorway has its own packaging. It's not just a single box that all of them go in. I wanted them all to be seen as to what's inside from the outside. So that was a huge thing that I did. So I had to find out a way to do that was cost efficient. I hope that everybody likes the packaging. I hope that when you first open the box that it's a cool experience and everything goes well on your build. Thank you for the questions, guys. It's fun talking about behind the scenes. We have a huge dev document that I kept up with basically over the entire 3 years, where I typed up a ton of my thoughts, why I made decisions, problems that came out, how we fixed them, just a ton of just random rambling of my thoughts. So if you're really interested in even more details, you can go check that out. But I hope anyone that orders the Bauer Lite enjoys it, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. For anybody that orders it, it's a passion project at the least. It's definitely the biggest challenge that I've ever attempted, and that the biggest product release we've ever done at Omnitype, and we're very proud of it. So I hope that it gives you a good experience when you have it on your table. Thank you. I don't know how to end this thing. Thank you, people. Thank you for buying our board.